Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Debate Hub. I am Chesh. I am your master debater, and I am here with Bonky today, and I'm super excited. We're here to talk about what the hell feminism is going to look like in 2025, because 2025 is going to be a nightmare for everybody, let's be real, but feminism is in a really, really interesting spot, putting it nicely. Bonky, how are you? Who are you? What's going on?
I'm great. I'm super excited to be here chatting with you, Chesh. Um, who am I? I am a wife. I've been married for 21 years and I'm a mother of 5. This is very important to the feminist angle that we're going to be talking about today, because for a lot of people online, I don't embody what they think a feminist looks like or their life is like, and it just pisses them right off when they find out I'm married with kids in a very traditional looking marriage.
Even in feminism, you have to fit a stereotype,
Yes.
or else.
Yes. Right. A lot of people throw in cat lady and blue hair and you must be this and you must be that. And they're so disappointed when they learn I have 5 children. It's a lot of kids. So
you run horny activism on Twitter.
Yes.
Currently
on
sitting
Twitter
at 21,000 followers. You absolutely blew up in the last year.
Yes. Unintentionally. Yes. And I'm on Twitter as She's Bonky.
Yes.
Because I go by Bonky for Twitter purposes.
Make sure to put
and so
the
every
links
single day,
description.
horny activism is where I have for almost not quite 600 days in a row now, shared a photo or a short video of men who are hot that challenges a standard that has been set for women that men have no societal pressure to live up to.
So it's a little bit about showing a double standard where women have to follow these rules, but men are like totally normal over here. So
yes, if nobody cares.
So
yes, so
give me an example of like a
So it started out specifically in reference to women's leggings. There has been in the last year and a few years before that grumbling from men about women's leggings. I can't work out in the gym because these women are here wearing leggings and it's distracting me and it's causing me to stumble and blah, blah, blah. So that's what it started as. And I shared a photo of a very attractive man wearing tiny red shorts to jog through a public space. And nobody cares. Nobody thinks twice. Nobody calls him a slut or a whore. Nobody says he's asking for it. He's asking to be sexually assaulted. He's only dressing in these little red shorts for the female gaze. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
But since then, and because I'm almost at day 600, it also cycles into other things. For instance, like the crazy Western idea, Western meaning globally, that women have to remove every trace of body hair on their entire body except for hair on their head, of which they must have long hair to be feminine, and eyebrows. But you could never have armpit hair or leg hair. And if you do, you're disgusting or it's unsanitary. People are shilling that women having natural leg hair is somehow unsanitary.
Wait till they find out there's hair inside of our noses.
Insane. And so I will post on Horny Activism that conservatives are saying this is unsanitary, and then showing a picture of a very attractive, very muscly man with chest hair.
Do you think that
being allowed to exist?
Do you think that bothers them a little bit in the idea that, like, why are you posting this very sexy man on my very, very straight timeline?
Well, listen, we all know how the algorithm works. Let me just say this. I have like a little drawn icon, profile picture that actually my teenage daughter drew of me last year.
From her. That's adorable.
But I have short hair, obviously, and I've had short hair for years. And sometimes it becomes obvious. Just last week, some bro came into my comments and said, we all know how the algorithm works. I think you might be gay, buddy. So he glanced at this cartoon avatar or profile picture and assumes because this profile picture is a cartoon, even though, by the way, this avatar, this profile picture has boobs. Like, she drew me, like,
I'll
not
pull
like
it up so
crazy
people.
town.
I'll
Like,
pull it up so people can see
like,
it.
not like anime boobs, but like she does very well. So they glance at it, see the short hair, and think I'm a man. And so I just came back to him and said, I am a cis woman who is married with 5 children. The question is, how did you stumble on to this algorithm of me showing half-naked
Telling
men
on
to prove
himself?
societal norms are bullshit? And that man deleted that tweet so fast.
Oops. Oops.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
Done.
I like that.
Yes. Yeah.
So, what do you
again,
say? Oh, go ahead.
This brings the disappointment when they find out I've never had an abortion and I have 5 children from the same man that I've been married to, who, by the way, is my only sexual partner of my entire life, and I am his of our entire lives. And we've been married for 21 years.
Wow, it's almost like feminism is about getting out of boxes,
Yes.
not about putting women back in different boxes.
Exactly. Well, I think you bring up a really interesting point. Sorry, you started to ask me something, but now
no, go ahead.
I'm swinging you back. When I was thinking about this and getting ready to chat with you about this, I was talking to my husband a little bit about the language and how language is weaponized in order to create a divide between people. And feminism is such a loaded term.
Yes.
When at its core, all that it is, the only thing that it is the belief that women and men should have the same opportunities in economic, political, and social life. That is all it is. It is nothing more than that at its core.
Yeah.
So as a diehard feminist myself, I am thrilled if a woman chooses to and wants to stay at home and not work out and be a home mom. If you want to homeschool your kids, I'm all go for it, girl. Like, if that's what you want to do, I am thrilled for you.
Yeah.
But if you want to do something else, you have the opportunity. That's all that feminism is. It's not that I think, because I am a stay-at-home mom of 5 children, but I believe that myself and any other woman should have an equal opportunity if they want it.
Yeah, well, and I think that's fair, and I think that's a really big misnomer. I saw somebody recently talking about the term toxic femininity as a mirror to toxic masculinity. So, just for a short brief, toxic masculinity being things that are toxic to men that are generally directed at male stereotypes. Things that are generally bad for men. So people were thinking that toxic femininity would act as a mirror. What this person was going on to explain was that actually toxic femininity is women using their feminine qualities, or what are described or socially accepted as feminine qualities, to abuse women or try to force women to be a specific way. And that is more akin to a toxic femininity. And I think that matches, and I think it does incidentally end up mirroring a little bit more. What do you think about it?
Well, and I see women, and it just blows my mind that I see women on Twitter every day saying we should repeal the 19th Amendment.
Yeah.
Like, girl, what are you talking about? Why?
It's the trad, like, what do you, like, the trad ideal that's been kind of coming out from the extreme right wing.
The only way I can wrap my mind around this mentality is that when you are raised, and we have all been raised, every single one of us has been raised in a highly misogynist and racist and classist society, that feels comfortable to a lot of people. To step outside of that is uncomfortable.
It's easy
for many. And I was raised as a Mormon for my whole, up until my adulthood. And I was absolute, like, feminism and feminist was like a dirty word in my house. My mother was so anti-feminism. If like yeah,
Right.
it was just the shit talking she did about other women and Gloria Steinem, and any woman who chose something other than what she chose for her life was just crazy. And when I started to step out of that, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's uncomfortable. And when people start to challenge that they have been raised in a racist society, and so having grown up in that, you might have some vestiges of that without realizing it, and having to challenge those and change your behavior, that's uncomfortable.
I find language is really, really telling a lot of the time about where somebody's coming from and where they're at in their journey and what they think about things. So, yes, it's important to listen to what they're trying to say and the idea they're getting across, but the language they
Yeah.
use to get there, I think, can be really, really, really telling. So, I had an experience not
Yes.
too long ago where people were talking about how they work through trauma or how they work through different things. And both of the people I was talking to use the same format that have been like therapy wise described as using houses. And one of them described,
Okay.
oh, this house that I can come and go in out of as much, this room that I can go in and out of my house, and eventually it's going to get demolished and removed from the house. And the other person described the room as a scary room. And immediately my brain went, why are you describing it as a scary room? And it just tells me or gives me an idea of like where somebody's
Yeah.
at in their journey. So I find like the same way you can apply that to feminism and even like
Yeah.
positive or negative being like pro men, right? So
Yeah.
I don't think that feminism is inherently against men. I think it's about freeing men up
No,
as
I don't
well.
either. It's only about it. Again, at its core, it's only about the belief that women should have equal opportunity if they want it, that there
Sure.
should not be barriers set in place. And people often come onto my Twitter and accuse me of being a man hater. Like, I've been married to the love of my life
Mm-hmm.
for almost 22 years. There are so many men in my sphere that I adore, that are good men. I don't think all men are trash. I love all people in general. Um,
You're in that humanist
there,
category.
yeah, there's nothing about feminism that is taking away anything from men. But I think we've seen this as society has become more aware in the last decade about
Yeah.
white privilege and that sort of thing, that to be in this space, to be a white man and to have anyone else allowed a seat at the table feels like it's taking something away from them, when that is not the case.
Right.
And listen, I just had a conversation this week with my husband about, again, we throw out, oh, you're a privileged man and you don't understand, and that sounds so negative, and of course it kind of is, right? But
There's a negative
it
connotation. There's some negative baggage that can be brought up with that, sure.
it's hard for me. But I can put myself in a headspace where I imagine a world if, from birth on, in every interaction you have, and I feel this way a little bit as a white person,
Mhm.
that young boys are growing up in our culture, and all day every day the path is cleared for them and they don't realize
No.
they if I was a man and I had been existing in corporate spaces for my first in school and then in college and then in a corporate space, and no one had ever interrupted me, stolen my idea, said, slapped my ass, asked me to get them a coffee, of course they wouldn't have an awareness that that was happening.
Yeah.
They don't have an awareness that because this is how it's always been for them,
Right.
right? It's like saying, like, to a fish, like, you didn't know it was wet. Well, this boy, from his earliest interaction with other humans, has been catered to, and the way has been paved for him in a way that it
Right.
hasn't been for me as a woman. In the same way, though, that I grew up as a white girl in America/Canada, when the only black family I see on TV is The Cosby Show.
Right.
And every doll I encounter, and every Barbie, and every supermodel, and every magazine cover is a white woman.
Yeah.
Except the one supermodel in the 90s who is a woman of color, who the only thing that goes around are rumors that she is a bitch, that she is a
Right.
violent, that Naomi Campbell is a violent, hard to work with bitch. And listen, maybe she was. I have no idea. The point is,
You don't hear
of
that language
course,
being used
you grow.
equally across the board. You're
No.
only hearing
And
it
of
about
course,
this
I've
one, right?
grown up in a world where at some point I think, oh, wait a minute. There has always been a sea of white Barbies. To include Black Barbies or Mexican Barbies or Asian Barbies or any other kind of Barbie doesn't take anything away from my children. As it just brings more in and expands the circle. But I think we become so comfortable and so used to the way things have always been that,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, to push out of that can be uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's a two-pronged problem, right? First off, you have to realize what's going on, which means something has to happen in your life for that to
Yes.
click. Whether that's you saw something on TV, you saw an interview, you watched a show like this one, you happened to come across Bonky's Twitter page, and then that's like, oh, wait a minute, and then you start looking into it, and that starts to get uncomfortable, and you're going to do one of two things. You're going to get defensive,
Yeah. Defensive.
or
Yeah.
yeah, you're going to get defensive, or you're going to do one of those shutdowns, or maybe you're going to go ahead and start learning and educating and being more curious. And that's where you start to find who is confident and comfortable and who isn't. And I think
Yes.
the women who are more aggressive to keeping other women in those boxes are less confident in who they are as women.
Yes.
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 And I don't mean that offensively, and I don't mean to say that in a way to to slam on them or anything. I think that it's if you grew up in a box and you fit in the box, because not everybody who grows up in that box fits in that box. And I think
Yes.
that's how most people end up outside of the box in the first place. They realize they didn't really fit into it to begin with.
Yes.
So if you fit in the box and maybe you never really wanted to be there, oh shit, now what?
Well, and this resonates so much with me because I was in that box. I grew up in a highly conservative Mormon family where I was told the only thing I could be was a wife and a mother. It never even occurred to me to be anything else.
Yeah.
And it also never occurred to me that I could have an and. Because Mormonism, especially in my generation growing up, it wasn't you could be a wife and mother and an author and a photographer there was no and.
Right.
If you stepped foot out of that home, you were a bad mom and a bad wife and a bad woman. Period.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I can't separate because I lived in that world and was born into that world. I suspect I would have always wanted to still be a mother. I don't know that I would have been super into traditional marriage had I not been putting that label on it and going through the legal courses. Maybe I would have, but I
would have
don't
been a
remember
different
ever not wanting to be a
decision-making
mom.
process.
And I think I might have wanted to be a mom anyway, regardless of that.
Yeah.
Right. Because I've always loved kids and I don't feel like that was, planted in me in that way. But I fit in that box. So I was happy and comfortable in that box.
Yeah.
And then when I started to challenge that box and realize, no, this isn't fair to women. And no, I don't think these things are right. I was left with like a mini identity crisis. Like,
Absolutely.
what would my and have been? And when I left Mormonism, I was 40. I was 39, 40. And so there was, I know people are going to be like, it's never too late. But I felt like it was too late, right?
Sure.
To be even an and. It's not that I didn't want to be a mom and I didn't want to be married and I hated this whole life I've built for myself. I love this life I've built for myself.
You're still living it. I'm surely if you were not happy.
And have been.
Right.
Could I have been a happy wife and mother and an author
Mhm.
and a doctor and an anything.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
now it felt too late.
Yeah.
And so I think so often, like you were saying, feminism includes my making space and honoring that there are women who want to be a stay-at-home mom,
Yeah.
who want to homeschool their kids, who don't want to have an and
Mhm.
that's fantastic. That's great. I love that for them.
Yeah.
I was really happy for a lot of years like that too, and I'm still really happy. I excuse me, I worked for myself and had a like small business in social media in the last few years that I could do on my timeline and around having kids and not be like away from them during that time. And
Yeah.
then recently I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. My husband got a new promotion at work in which he was at work more and had more away time and had to go on more business trips. And I didn't want to do that anymore. So I didn't.
Yeah.
A- And I
Wow.
don't have to. And
Yeah.
I can be happy now being back at I'm a stay-at-home mom. Like,
Yeah. And if you
and
have a life that can
sometimes people
support
are
that
like,
or that's something you want to
what
work
else?
towards,
I'm
why
like,
not?
that's it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, well, what do you say? What do you say to somebody who's not in a position to necessarily like you have a husband who supports you, you have a family who supports what you're
Yes.
doing, but not
Hmm.
everybody is. They've put themselves in that box. They've lived in that box. They want to get out of that box, but now they're financially burdened or reliant on somebody who's maybe not as supportive in a position where they don't have the opportunity. What are your
Yeah.
like it's a lot it changes the dynamic. Now I'm in a position where I'm
For
well
sure.
supported by the people around me, but do you have advice for people who are wanting to kind of get out of this stuck negative traditional styled way
Yeah.
of living about what
Yeah.
you would tell them?
Well, I mean, I think that there's so much available now, especially with the technology that we have today. There are so many options that weren't available to women previously, and not just because women have been getting like restricted and shit on for, since the dawn of time.
Since forever.
Um, yes. I mean, I saw a woman on my Twitter say recently, men gave us the right to vote in but men gave us the right to vote in 1920. And I'm like, no, 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 sister, friend, no, listen up, listen up.
Please.
We forced men to stop restricting us from having the right to vote in 1920. And when I say we, I mean badass women who were stay-at-home moms who left their children at home and marched in the streets, and some died and
There were
rotted in jail
riots.
cells so that I could go and vote. Like, men didn't give us that. They took it away from us up until 1920.
Right. Right.
Women took it back and said, hell no.
Right.
And
That was all
when
after World
you
War II. Yeah, World War II was kind
yeah,
of a big deal, kind of mattered.
yes.
World War One, kind of a big deal, kind of
Yeah.
changed the dynamic of the way the Western world was working and functioning.
Well, and I think so much of the problem is I this all like goes in a circle in my mind. Some of
Hmm.
this problem is that we're not teaching these things in school and we're not teaching accurate history in school. Because if you have,
Yeah.
as soon as you gain an understanding of the fact, I think so often we as Americans, we'll just classify this as an American thing for a
Sure.
second, think, oh, that thing was so long ago, it's not even a thing. It was never even almost a thing. You know, we see that with vaccinations.
I just
Um,
watched Jordan Peterson and Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative
yeah,
Party in Canada, telling people that we imported racism to Canada. Like there wasn't racism in Canada
yes,
before
yeah,
some time, allegedly. Like,
right.
what?
And I think what we need, I tell women often when these sorts of conversations come up,
Mm.
we all think like, oh, so our grandmas couldn't get a job, blah blah blah. No, 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 no. Listen, in my lifetime, and not just in my lifetime, in a year that I was cognizant of,
Hmm.
in 1988, so I would have been 11. For the first time, women could get a small business loan without a male cosigner
Yeah.
because a law passed. That was
Yep.
in in many of our lifetimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as a 47-year-old, that wasn't a year I actually remember existing in. It wasn't like, oh, our grandmas couldn't, get a job.
Mm-hmm.
This is going on right now. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is
Yeah.
so recent
Yep.
that it's going to take a similar, just like the suffragettes left their homes, left what they knew for short periods of time, obviously, to march and demand that men stop standing in the way of us being able to have basic human rights,
Yep.
like voting.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to take that again. Moving into
2025.
2025, it's going to take women again and male allies.
Oh,
Like,
of course.
we'll take them all.
Yeah.
I'm all here for it.
Yeah.
Getting out and saying, oh, absolutely the fuck not.
Mm-hmm.
Are you taking away our right to bodily autonomy? That is a basic human right that every man in America has.
Yeah.
The right to bodily autonomy. There is zero legislation about what a man can do with his own body. Mm-hmm. And it's going to take modern suffragettes getting out of their comfort zone and leaving their kids behind for a Saturday to march on the capital of their state and saying, oh, absolutely the fuck not.
Yeah, yeah. I like there's a lot of that kind of going around right now where we're seeing I think I've seen two major like quote unquote movements after the Trump election. I saw women being very, very upset in two different ways. One set of women was being very, very angry that they were getting disinvited to family events like Thanksgiving because they voted
Yes,
for Trump by the other women in their lives. And then the other one was, we're not gonna have sex with you guys anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that amuses me because the reaction to both of these things was very, very different. We got it, particularly if you want to look at from men's side. From men's side, the women who were upset that they weren't being invited to a thing anymore were either coddled or mocked. One of those two things. The women who were saying, we're not going to have sex with you anymore, were threatened with rape and sexual assault.
Yes. Yes.
Those are very different reactions, but stem from the same attitude of just hatred.
Yes, absolutely. that women are nothing more than a vehicle for men to have sex and for men to birth men's children.
Propagate their bloodline.
Every insult a woman gets on the internet about her physical appearance, she can be talking about anything, and the insult is about the physical appearance, always goes back to
the hair.
You are nothing more than a vehicle for a man to have sex with.
Your value is based on how attractive you are to somebody else.
Only thing you have.
Mm-hmm. And it's arbitrary.
And it's arbitrary. Yep.
That's crazy.
And so every time I see insults like that, where people come to insult me, it doesn't affect me personally in any way. Because I have an understanding and a knowledge that just like men, my intrinsic worth has nothing to do with my visual appearance.
Right.
That men are valued for being smart and
being generous, helpful,
being generous,
kind, sometimes bad traits they get rewarded for.
Yeah.
Like being angry, being aggressive, being able to chug way too many beers. That's unreasonable.
Yes.
You get praised for it all the time. Yay.
But
you did the dishes.
Praised for is being attractive. And if a woman dares try, like AOC or another woman who dares hold any power, then the insults come out, and the insults are always about the physical appearance.
I think there was
because what you're really saying is you're unfuckable, and that's the worst thing you could possibly be.
I think we're going to see this
Unfuckable.
more again in the future as well. The differences in the attacks and the expectations between Trump and Kamala
Yeah.
Harris. So the way
Yes.
Trump was approached and what he's allowed to do and what is considered good or well-performing behavior from him is so piss poor compared to what the
Yes.
expectation for Kamala Harris was. And I think you're going to see, like, you saw the same thing with Biden as well. The expectation was still different, but the
Yes.
drastic, even
Same.
Hillary
Yeah.
Clinton, the drastic expectation difference, but and what the attacks were so
Well, and
just
even leading up to the election, people overwhelmingly saying, well, Kamala Harris slept her way to the top. Instead of overwhelmingly, even if you, let's say you believe that's true 100%,
sure.
okay? If you believe that Kamala Harris slept her way through the top through sex only, then what you also believe is that there were men in the entire span of Kamala Harris's career to this point who would not advance a woman until she had sex with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have to also believe that is true.
Yeah. And then you
You
also have to
can't
believe that she's good enough
separate
at
those things.
sex to succeed.
And that's a win, honestly.
That's a win. We take those. Oh, I got somebody in the
take it.
chat that says, it's Alex that said, men get praised for existing. Also men, horribly depressed because women won't let them walk all over them. What do you
Yes.
think about this male loneliness epidemic, quote
Oh,
unquote?
I have feelings.
Oh,
I
I'll snuggle
I
in.
love it
Yes.
so much. Because again, remember
The
a
bar's
couple of
so
years
low.
ago remember a couple of years ago when people were like, when women especially were like, self-care, I'm taking a bubble bath, self-care, I bought myself this candle, self-care.
Yes.
I could not exist in that space. It pissed me off so badly. And I had so many kind and gentle conversations with women saying, are you fucking kidding me? You bathing yourself is not a,
The
like, but
bar is
anyway,
so low. The bar is so
so
low.
low. Can you imagine a man taking a shower or a bath and then having to call it self-care so that he could
No,
pencil it
men
in
don't wash their
on
asses. They
his
don't bathe.
schedule, or light a candle and just sit still for 20 minutes and have
Right.
to brand it as self-care in order to feel worthy
That
to
would
just be
basically
able
be the
to
equivalent.
exist.
If you want to do like stereotypes, it would be the equivalent of men going to work on their car in the garage for 4 hours after they got home from work to do nothing around
Yes.
the house as
Yes.
self care.
So I mean, I don't love that men are, I mean, listen, again, I don't hate men. I want men to be in healthy, wonderful relationships. Everyone deserves, if they want to be in a healthy, wonderful relationship with amazing sex. Everyone. I want, that's the platform I'm
Yeah,
running
yeah,
because I
I'm here for
dominate the
this. I'm
world.
here for this message. Absolutely.
I
All
don't
this, all
love
the
that,
great
like,
sex that they want.
I don't love that men are now reaping the rewards of what they very potentially didn't have as much of a hand in as we think. You know, they were raised by mothers and fathers who taught them that they didn't have to do jack anything,
Right.
that the girls were going to clean up the dinner dishes because that's what girls did.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
their sisters were going to take care of the babies because that's what girls did.
Yeah.
And their sisters were going to learn how to wash their own ass because that's what girls do.
And clean to learn how to clean skid marks.
And learn how to clean because that's what girls do. And
Mhm.
girls are going to learn how to cook basic meals for themselves because that's what girls do. And a lot of men have found themselves in a position now where women are saying, I'm absolutely not going to be your mom anymore. And
Yep.
them existing within that space and bitching about it is their fault. Men saying, you know, bitches or, you know, blah, 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 and asking too much of us, that's their fault. But the part leading up to that is not necessarily all their fault.
Yeah.
You know, we have been,
There's
and I was too. Again, I was raised in a family where boys mowed the lawn and boys changed the oil and boys changed the tire and girls picked up the brothers' dishes after they ate.
yeah.
It took me getting to be an adult. And actually, before I was even an adult, I was, learning to drive and saying, I'm not going to drive a car unless I know how to change a tire. That's about that's how you be a driver, not how
Yeah.
you be a man.
Yeah.
That if I'm going to drive a car, I need to know how to change a tire and check the oil. You know what I mean? Like that's the
You have to be
basics
responsible for
of being
yourself
a
and your
human.
vehicle. Yeah.
And the problem is that we need men now who are in a loneliness epidemic and want to be in a healthy communication it will force them, if they want this to be better, to either find a woman who's willing to be their mom, or they're going to have to, like I did,
Yeah.
teach myself to change a tire.
I think that
Because
there's
as
this
a human
idea.
adult, I
Yeah.
needed to be able to know how to change a tire. I decided that for myself. As a human adult, a man, if he's going to have children, he needs to learn how to change a diaper, period.
I think if you're going to go along the lines of this loneliness epidemic that men seem to be going through, and at least they're purporting that they're going through, I
Yes,
think
yes,
that there is a degree of the bar was so low. The bar has
yes.
moved 2 inches upwards.
2 inches up.
If that, in most cases, especially if you start talking about individual relationships,
Yes.
that you can't, all you're doing is telling on yourself about what a terrible partner you are, about how unwilling you are
Yes.
to meet somebody where they're at, and your unwillingness to change. That why
Yeah.
should anybody want to deal with you, male or
Yes.
female or other? Why would anybody want to deal with you at all?
No. Well, and when women wanted to change, and like you said, what would you say to a woman who wants to step out of this box? And I would say the same thing that happened to women in the 50s who wanted to step out of the box. If they want to change, they had to themselves get shit done
Well,
and change the trajectory. And that's what men need to do if they want to end the loneliness epidemic. They have to get their ass to therapy
yeah.
and change the shit that needs to be changed and step it up.
Well, I also
There's
think there's
nothing
like a
anyone else
degree.
can do.
I think there's also a degree that I think is really interesting too. Where you've said you are married, you have been with the same man, you're both your firsts, and you have been married for a long time. You have 5 kids, and you've changed between point A and point B
drastically,
and your family has supported you and changed along with you in whatever various ways, which means that
caveat. My husband and our kids, if that's what you mean, the family.
Sorry, yes. I mean your immediate. Yes.
Mormon, and my mother is just wringing her hands.
Oh no.
That I am a feminist. That I believe women should be allowed to work if they want to.
How dare.
It's just I know.
Savagery.
I know.
So your husband and your children have adapted and made adjustments. And
let me say this.
Yes.
My husband is amazing. He is a total feminist, but were there times in our early marriage when I literally said to him, listen, I'm not asking you to go like above and beyond. This isn't next level. This is the basement level.
This is the level.
He also had to unlearn and he grew up in a, feminist family. His mom was educated, had a master's degree, what I mean? Like worked for some time, but then eventually stayed home with the kids full time while the dad went to work. But they were, we had times in the beginning of our relationship when I had to gently, and sometimes not gently, say, oh, no, honey. This isn't the extra mile. I'm asking you to do the first mile.
Yeah, it's like and what I'm getting at is I think that is a testament of how it's work, but it's doable.
But he did it. Yes.
And he can do it, which tells us all that if you are coming out of that box, your man can come with you. And he's making a definitive decision not to, if he is choosing to dig in his heels. That is a choice.
If he's choosing to dig in and then bitch about the loneliness
yes.
Because and listen, in marriage in general, I'm here saying like I had to say that's not the next mile, that's the first mile. there were things in our marriage that I had to do for him as well. They just didn't happen to be in this realm. Do you know what I mean? I grew up in a
Yes,
really
you have to
toxic
change.
family who
He's got to
screamed and
change.
yelled and called
Absolutely.
names when
Yep.
there was an argument, when there was a conflict, and then hurt each other
Yes.
verbally and emotionally when there was a conflict. And my
Yep.
husband grew up in a family of therapists. Like, that
All
when I first
relationships are
entered
like
this
that. Yeah.
realm, my brain, I could not.
Mm.
Like, their conflict resolution skills were like fucking Charlie Brown teacher to me, where they were just like,
Wah, wah,
I
wah,
feel
wah.
that, like, men, there were grown men saying, when you said this, it made me feel this, and that hurt my feelings. Can you tell me why you said that? And I'm just like, what? Like,
Yeah.
I don't even understand the words coming out of your mouth. So it's not to say, I just don't want to like put out there like I'm this goddess and I had to drag my husband along with me in this marriage and teach him how to go not the extra mile but the first mile in a million other ways.
Yeah.
He had to drag me to go the first mile as well.
Right.
Where he
It's
was
a
like,
give and take. You
you
should be learning from each other. It should
yeah,
be difficult. You should
screaming
be being better.
your head
Yeah.
off when we have a conflict and storming out and leaving for 3 hours. It's probably not the best way for us to handle this. And I had to learn those skills, and that took time in the
Yeah.
same way that he learned skills where I'm saying, yeah, that's no, you can't, do that in the kitchen, or I'm not doing this thing for you.
Right.
Like, you're
And
you're a human adult.
asking if the dishwasher,
Like,
if they can put, is it clean? I don't know. Open it. Look. What do you want from
right.
me?
Well, and I will do things for him. That's also part of our relationship.
That's
Doing
totally
things for
fair.
each other. That's
Collect the
where
dishes and
the
throw
other
them
person's,
in.
but that also
Mm,
doesn't mean that you know what I mean? Like,
not your
so there's a
mom.
balance as with all relationships that are healthy. And I've had to learn new skills and he's had to learn new skills and
I think that it
unlearn
is
shit that we were taught growing up.
I think it is a disservice to men to expect that they cannot go beyond this little bar. I think that's a disservice
Yes,
to men.
I do
I
too.
think men are better than this. I do not think men are
Yes,
incapable
I
of
agree.
these things. I think they need to be willing and you cannot force them. But I think it's a matter of a conversation. And sometimes I think you have to yell
Yes.
to be heard, especially in
I
like
say
today's
all the
sphere.
time, the patriarchy also hurts men. Not in the same way and not to the same extent, even remotely. But I'll give you a perfect example.
It's different, yeah.
A couple of months ago, and I tweeted about this when it happened, my husband texts me from his work and he says, someone just dropped off, like a coworker of mine just dropped off a card and a gift box for you. And I'm like, for me? What are you talking about? Like, my husband's boss, basically,
Mm-hmm.
who's a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and she's a doctor, like has a doctorate in that doctor way. She has a doctorate degree.
I gotcha.
And when he brings this box home, I have no idea what this could possibly be. And when I open it, there's a very lovely handwritten card where she says, I want to thank you so much for making those amazing brown butter banana cake bars that you sent to the office with your husband for my birthday a few months ago. I'm so sorry that it took me this long to get you a thank you note. And then there was a box with gorgeous earrings in it for me. Chesh, my husband made her that cake. He browned the butter. He made the entire cake. He frosted that cake. He loves to cook. I told him when I thought the brown butter was done because he hadn't browned butter before. And I was like, this is a fine line. It goes to burnt really quick. But
You helped him out a little bit,
he
you
took
know.
like the teeniest bit. He used a recipe I had made and was in our shared recipe app. But other than that, he did every single part of that and took it to work and put it for her birthday. And it never even occurred to her that it was him.
Oh, no. And that's what it feels like.
And I was like,
well, this is a nice, lovely new pair of earrings you've got, hubby.
I feel like absolute crap. But if I tell her, she's going to feel so bad. And by the way, she is a woman who, being a doctorate level, like high up rank, like my husband's boss.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This woman has had to face down and kick the ass of the patriarchy, I assume, her entire career. But there it was, where she assumed that the wife, and I'm not saying like she's an asshole or a sexist.
Well, it's a, was she assuming about you? Was she
society that
assuming about
says,
him? What, like, there's so many things going on, yeah.
you know, and like I primarily cook for our family, and his people, you know, who we work with know that I do baking for charity. And that I often bake cakes and that I love baking.
Yeah, but she didn't ask.
But
She
still,
just
she
jumped
didn't
to the
ask.
conclusion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she just assumed. You know,
Oh man.
that's a way in which the patriarchy also harms men. It's not serving men either.
Yeah. Alex
You
in the
know?
chat had asked, tell me your husband wore the earrings like the Chad that he is.
He did not. He doesn't have pierced lobes.
It would have
They
been
were pierced.
really funny if he wore them to work.
It really would.
That would have been...
I know. But then I felt so bad because I was like, I kind of want to tell her because I want him to get the credit.
It'd be one of the... I feel like what I would do is
that is next level.
I feel like I would write a note back saying, oh my god, thank you so much, I appreciate this so much, but I do not feel right like, accepting these because my husband is the one who made
He's the one, right. So I didn't know what to do, and so I said to my husband, what do you want me to do? Like, you made those, and I feel so bad that I'm getting credit for something you did. He's like, it doesn't even matter, it's fine.
Whatever.
So I still have them. I just don't even know what to do with them.
Oh, that's amazing.
They're very beautiful.
All right.
You know,
well,
listen.
Yes.
You know, I have 2 sons and 3 daughters, and I see ways in which the patriarchy harms my sons all the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Where they're not allowed to be sensitive. They're not allowed to have platonic friendships with girls.
Society very much stunts young.
Sportsy.
Oh, I find society very much stunts young men's emotional growth.
Yes.
And boys' emotional growth in really bad ways. Because I don't think the patriarchy is something that men do to women, and I don't think the patriarchy is something that women do to men. It's a system that is...
We've all grown up in, that we've all ingested from day one of our lives.
Yeah.
In a million gazillion tiny ways every single day.
Yep.
And again, I don't think for a second that my husband's boss is a sexist or was trying to, you know, call into question his abilities or say that he's a fembot because he happened to also know how to bake.
Yeah. She's
just a person who has also grown up in a society that says men can't do this, women can't do this. Yeah. We can't switch anything in this. Men can't have an interest in anything but sports. Or
video games.
They're less of a man.
Yeah. Or else.
Yeah.
You can't wash yourself or you're gay.
Anything else. Yeah, right.
It's insanity.
You can't wash your own ass or you're gay is insanity.
I can't. Women having body hair. Unsanitary.
Like, unsanitary.
Then why are there still women? Like, what are you talking about?
Here's what we need. It all comes back to, if we would teach in our schools more comprehensive history, if we learned that no women anywhere in the world shaved their hair until the 1920s, when a razor company in America wanted to double their profits and said, what if we convinced women that they were less female if they didn't start shaving their legs?
Yeah.
It is all about money. It was all about capitalism. It had nothing to do with aesthetics or nothing to do with being cleaner. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then after a time when they said you have to shave your legs, and their messaging, by the way, was very specifically that it was manly to not shave their legs. You're pitting that against each other, that it's inherently feminine to have smooth legs. And then as soon as they get that much money, they said, what if we do the same thing with armpits?
I think that if we want to talk about education and what we need to, like, what specifically, because it's a little bit like easy to say, education needs to be better. We could all agree with that. I think that if you want to be specific, I think high schoolers need to have a course that is about media and marketing. There needs to be a marketing course that explains what marketing is and how it works, because it's terrifying.
Yes.
And I think that would help a lot.
Yeah. Let me give you a story from my own life that's going to warm your feminist Canadian heart. My teenagers, we moved to Nebraska from Utah. And my teenagers started at a new high school and here. And a couple of months in, I say, how's school going? Obviously, like we've checked in earlier than that. But
Yeah.
a couple of months in after they've been in certain classes for a while, I'm checking in again. And my daughter says to me, in our history class, no matter what we're learning about, let's say the unit is on World War II and the Holocaust.
Sure.
And then the next unit is on, the Nixon era, whatever it is. And then one unit's about the Dark Ages, whatever that, whatever the unit is. As they're going through in this history class, a standard part of the curriculum, they spend, say, 4 days talking about World War II or whatever span of time there has.
Mm-hmm.
And the last 1 to 2 class periods before they end that unit, that history class teaches the whole day, the whole curriculum for those last 2 days is how this event in the world impacted women and minorities and the poor.
That is
so you talk
absolutely
about
incredible.
World War II, then you spend 1 to 2 entire class periods at the very end talking about how the poor, how the marginalized, how people of color, and how women were affected by this life event. And then we go to the next one, and then we go to the next one. And we talk about the wall coming down in, Germany. And we talk about all the things I learned about in school. And then they spend a whole day talking about how that affected women, minorities, and the poor.
That needs to be a federal rule for everything.
Yes. And
oh my God.
Not to bag on Utah, because Utah schools are something else. But I gotta say that when we were still in Utah and those older kids were in junior high, my oldest son signed up for a class called speech. And I said, oh, it's probably like debate, right? He's starting the junior high. And so they don't have like a course description because it's junior high. It's not like college.
Yeah.
And so it just says speech. And I say, I assume that's like debate team, right? Because what else could it possibly be? My son's like, cool. I want to join that. He joins. We go to back to school night a weekend. The teacher is a brand new teacher. This is his first year teaching in the junior high. He's a man. And he says, I've had a lot of questions about what this class was, and I understand that it wasn't very clear. So I'm going to tell all of you teachers or all of you parents of your students. So it's split into 2 halves, this class in the semester or whatever. The whole first half, we're talking about communication skills in interpersonal relationships. And how to argue without fighting. And I was like,
I'm going to cry.
What?
Oh my God.
And then the second half of the class, then we're going to talk about like vocal presentations where your children will be researching a topic and giving a class presentation.
Literally
stage presence and blah, blah, blah.
Screaming about this.
I was like, what? This is everything. Now listen, Chesh. Week 2 of this class.
Gonna die.
I say, I'm dying to my son. I'm dying to know, like, what are your assignments like in this class? How are they teaching you how to communicate without fighting? And he said, well, the assignment I'm doing right now that I'm not going to tell you who it's about is I had to pick a member of my family, but not tell the member of my family, not tell anyone, and consider how I can communicate with them better in resolving conflict without getting upset. And Mom, I want you to know, this is my 13-year-old son, by the way. I want you to know, Mom, that I've been doing what the teacher taught us, and it's really working. So I was feeling really mad the other day about something, and then I stopped and I thought about what we learned, and it's really helped me. And I was like, get this teacher a grant from the federal government
and a Nobel Prize.
Replicate this everywhere, and a Nobel Peace Prize, and make this mandatory thing, because I didn't learn those. Again, I just told you, I didn't learn those skills until 3 years into my marriage.
Right.
When I spent the first 2 years of my marriage blowing up at my husband. He forgot to
fucking believable.
I am kablamo. You forgot to run the dishwasher. Blah blah blah. I was completely toxic because I did not know those skills. I had no idea how to argue or disagree without what I had been raised with, which was scream your head
Screaming,
off,
yelling, and
call it a
yes,
game.
yeah.
And if you can, think about if you and I are in a conflict, Chesh, I would be like, what do I know is Chesh's hot button? I'm going to throw that at her.
Yeah. Because if
Right?
the other person gets mad
Tubby
and you
sister,
stay louder, you
I'm going
win.
to get mad and I'm going to scream, you're a fat ass.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
That's the family I grew up in, and that's all I knew. And I literally did not have the skills or know how to do that until I made it my job as a full ass adult to learn how to do that.
You said this is junior high, so this is like
That
right
was
before they're
seventh
gonna get
grade.
sardined into high school. Could you imagine high
Seventh
schoolers
grade.
that know how to communicate with each other?
It was seventh grade.
Oh
He
my
was
god.
12 or 13. And so that whole first half, for like, it's like 2 months or something in that term.
My brain's blown.
It's how to communicate and disagree without fighting.
And imagine you
and
got
how
a
to
full
communicate that.
semester of that, and you got it for for a
Yes.
couple of years. Like it would be. I've been
Yeah.
screaming
And then
about
the second
this.
half of the class is how to present things and give a
Yeah.
speech and
Yeah, and that's
blah,
fine.
blah, blah.
Learning how to speak in
But
front
I
of
was
a
like,
crowd.
great,
Yeah.
sure, whatever, fine.
Debate.
That'll help them in their career, maybe, whatever.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
But the first half, I was just like
Blown.
mind blown. This needs to be required for everyone everywhere, because it wasn't for lack of me wanting to have a healthy relationship when I was first married. I literally
You
had
just
a
didn't
lack
know.
of skills.
You
I
didn't
had
know. No idea.
absolutely no idea.
Yeah.
And my parents divorced when I was 2. I never saw them in the same room. So I never even saw unhealthy communication. I saw 0
Right.
examples of
Right.
communication.
Yeah.
All it was me and my siblings screaming our heads off at each other, and occasionally, because I'm Gen X, beating the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you gotta work that out amongst yourselves,
Getting all
children.
scrappy sometimes, right?
Well,
So
that's an amazing story.
yeah.
We have
I'm
to
just
call it
saying
there.
there's hope. Let's do that for everyone.
Yes, there's hope. Let's do that for everybody.
Like I said, the man bros who are in the loneliness epidemic, they have an opportunity to get therapy, and let's destigmatize therapy.
The women are literally telling you their dating pool has gotten smaller, and you should take advantage of that.
Yes. Or if you're so broy you can't handle therapy, do something else.
Yeah. Find a way.
Learn to do, like, YouTube is magical. You
Invent
can
it
learn
yourself.
To do the dishes. You can learn to sew a button on your own shirt. You can learn anything on YouTube.
We believe in you.
And just like I learned, even without YouTube, to change my own tire. I just, like, this is how old I am. Like, I fucking went to a public library and looked up a book on how to change a tire, and I checked out the book and took it to my car and just changed a non-flat tire on my car, and I did it 3 times in a row, so I knew how to change a tire.
Perfect.
Like, men's got to do that, but with the other things, not just with household stuff and sharing the load, but with emotions. You can't punch the wall when your team loses.
Yeah.
You just can't. We're adults now. You just can't.
Yeah. Stop throwing tantrums.
Like, period.
All right, I gotta cut you off. We are at
I'm sorry.
almost an hour.
I'm an overtalker.
We're gonna do our Q&A session. So we're gonna end here. For catching us later, and you're catching this in the replay, and you're not seeing the Q&A section, it means it's gone. You're gonna have to like and subscribe and share and stuff and all that good shit, and go follow Bonky on Twitter or Blue Sky, which is also linked. Go and check that one out too.
Yes.
And we will see
she's
you
Bonky at both.
on the other side.